Rasheeda Frost and Kirk Frost, once known as a couple that had weathered every storm thrown their way, now find themselves at the center of a scandal that threatens to dismantle everything they've built. Fans who once admired their resilience are now left reeling as whispers of trouble in paradise turn into full-blown drama. But this time, the turmoil isn't just another bump in the road or a storyline for reality TV. This time, it's personal, raw, and painfully real. Late last night, an explosive revelation sent shockwaves through their marriage. An insider leaked damning details of a secret affair Kirk had been desperately trying to keep under wraps. It wasn't just a one-time mistake or an innocent flirtation. This was a full-fledged affair, spanning months, built on deception, and riddled with betrayal. And when Rasheeda uncovered the truth, the fallout was immediate and catastrophic. Accusations flew like daggers, each one cutting deeper than the last. Heated arguments erupted behind closed doors, but the echoes of their crumbling relationship found their way into the public eye. Rasheeda, long known for standing by her husband despite his past indiscretions, seemed to have reached her breaking point. Sources close to the couple now claim she is no longer willing to play the role of the forgiving wife. This time, she's ready to expose Kirk for exactly who he is. But the drama doesn't stop there. Rasheeda isn't just walking away, she's coming for everything. Fans have been dissecting her cryptic social media posts, each one hinting at betrayal and heartbreak. The tension has only escalated as behind-the-scenes footage of their explosive arguments begins to surface. And with rumors swirling that divorce papers are already in motion, everyone is asking the same question: is this truly the end for Rasheeda and Kirk? Rasheeda sat in the dimly lit room, her hands trembling as she gripped her phone. Her heart pounded erratically, the weight of the messages on her screen sinking into her chest like a boulder. The words blurred, but the meaning was crystal clear: Kirk had betrayed her again. But this time, there were no excuses, no vague accusations, no room for denial. This time, there was proof. Her breath hitched as she scrolled through the evidence that confirmed her worst nightmare. The texts weren't just casual flirtations or suggestive emojis sent in the heat of the moment. They were intimate, revealing months of deception. Pictures of stolen moments. Voice notes filled with whispers and laughter. Plans for secret rendezvous. And the most gut-wrenching part? The woman Kirk had been sneaking around with wasn't a stranger. She wasn't some nameless, faceless fling. She was someone Rasheeda knew, someone she had trusted. Her pulse quickened as the weight of realization crashed over her like a tidal wave. Every late-night phone call that went unanswered, every flimsy excuse, every dismissive attitude, it all made sense now. How could she have been so blind? How could she have let herself believe that this time was different? That he had changed? That their marriage was stronger than the temptations constantly lurking in the shadows? A sharp pang of nausea twisted in her stomach, and she clamped a hand over her mouth, willing herself to stay composed. But inside, she was crumbling. This wasn't just another scandal. This wasn't just Kirk being Kirk. This was a betrayal on a level she never thought possible. And for the first time in years, she knew she couldn't come back from this. The room felt smaller, suffocating, as if the walls were closing in around her. She wanted to scream, to break something, to demand an explanation that she knew wouldn't make any of this hurt any less. But more than anything, she wanted to be done. Done with the lies, done with the cycle of betrayal and forgiveness. Done with Kirk Frost. Tears stung at the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them away furiously. She had shed too many tears over this man. She had fought too hard for a love that only seemed to break her in the end. And now? Now, she was ready to fight for herself. With shaking hands, she pressed the call button. The line barely had a chance to ring twice before Kirk's voice filled her ear, casual, unsuspecting, as if he hadn't just ripped her heart out. "Rasheeda, what's up?" For a moment, she couldn't speak, the lump in her throat threatening to choke her. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply, steadying herself. When she finally spoke, her voice was eerily calm, laced with a quiet fury that sent shivers down her spine. "I know everything, Kirk." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening, stretching on for what felt like an eternity. She could almost hear the gears turning in his mind as he scrambled for a response, an excuse, a lie that might somehow salvage this mess. But there was no salvaging this. Not this time. What are you talking about?" he finally stammered, but the uncertainty in his voice betrayed him. He knew. He knew exactly what she was talking about. Rasheeda let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head even though he couldn't see her. "Don't insult me, Kirk. I have the messages. The pictures. The voice notes. I know who she is. I know how long this has been going on." A sharp inhale. More silence. Then, the sound of him exhaling heavily. "Rasheeda, listen." "No," she cut him off, her voice steel. "I'm done listening. I'm done believing you. And I'm done with you." Her own words sent a jolt through her, solidifying the decision she had been too afraid to make for far too long. Kirk had crossed a line that couldn't be erased, and she refused to let him drag her through this pain again. The finality in her tone must have hit him like a slap, because for the first time, Kirk had nothing to say. No smooth apologies, no weak attempts at justifying the unjustifiable. Just silence. And that silence spoke louder than any excuse ever could. As she ended the call, a strange sense of peace washed over her. It wasn't relief, it would take time before she felt that. But it was clarity. The first step toward reclaiming herself, her worth, and her future. This wasn't just the end of their marriage. It was the beginning of something new. Something stronger. And this time, she was finally putting herself first. Her voice was calm but edged with steel. "We need to talk. Now." There was a pause on the other end, a hesitation that made her blood boil. "I'm kinda busy right now. Can we?" "No, Kirk." She cut him off, her voice sharp and unwavering. "This can't wait." Another pause. Then a sigh. "All right. I'll be home in 20. She hung up without another word, her hands clenched into fists. 20 minutes. That was all the time she had to prepare for the fight that was about to come. As the minutes ticked by, she paced the living room, replaying every lie, every excuse he had ever fed her. And now, it was all coming to a head. Finally, the front door opened, and Kirk stepped inside. His expression unreadable, he took one look at Rasheeda and knew he was in trouble. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice guarded. Rasheeda didn't waste time. She held up her phone, her eyes locked onto his. "You tell me." Kirk's face barely changed, but she saw the flicker of something in his eyes, guilt, fear, maybe even regret. But none of it mattered anymore. "Who is she, Kirk?" Rasheeda's voice was steady, but the anger underneath was undeniable. Kirk ran a hand over his face, exhaling heavily. "Rasheeda, I don't know what you think." "Don't." She snapped, her voice rising. "Don't lie to me. Not this time. I have the messages. The pictures. Everything. So don't stand there and insult my intelligence." Silence filled the room, thick and suffocating. Kirk looked away, his jaw tightening. "It's not what you think," he muttered. Rasheeda let out a bitter laugh. "Oh really? Because what I think is that my husband has been creeping around with someone I know. Someone I trusted. What I think is that you've been lying to me for months. So please, enlighten me, Kirk. What exactly am I misunderstanding here? Kirk opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, he had nothing to say. And that was all Rasheeda needed to hear. A cold realization settled over her. This was it. This was the moment she had been avoiding for so long. Her voice was eerily calm when she spoke again. We're done, Kirk. His head snapped up, his eyes wide with disbelief. Rasheeda, come on. Don't do this. But she shook her head. No. You did this. You made this choice when you decided our marriage wasn't worth respecting. And now, you're going to have to live with the consequences. She turned away, walking toward the staircase, her hands shaking but her resolve strong. But just as she reached the first step, Kirk's voice stopped her. There's something you don't know. She froze, her heart pounding. Slowly, she turned back around. What? Kirk hesitated, his expression conflicted. And then, he said something that changed everything. The woman, she's pregnant. The words hit Rasheeda like a punch to the gut. The air left her lungs as if someone had physically knocked the wind out of her. Pregnant, she whispered, shaking her head. No. You're lying. Kirk looked her in the eyes, his expression grim. I wish I was. A wave of nausea rolled over her. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. She had fought so hard for their marriage. She had forgiven him for so much. But this? This was beyond betrayal. Her vision blurred as rage took over. Without thinking, she stormed past Kirk, grabbing her keys. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew one thing for sure. This time, she wasn't coming back.